I've seen so many people online asking what the I Smell Blood perk in Texas Chainsaw actually does, and today we're going to uncover that mystery. This perk has a pretty confusing description, and it can be unclear as to how the perk actually works. There's also a victim counter to this perk that we'll be mentioning at the end of today's video. Before we jump in, consider dropping a like or subscribing if you learned something new today, and also come say hey over on a Twitch live stream, link in the description. But let's get rolling. For those of you who don't know, I Smell Blood is a family member perk that is available on the Cook, Hitchhiker, and Johnny. The perk's description is as follows. Your proximity range is increased by 3 times to help you stay focused on the last victim. Now, this can seem pretty confusing for a few reasons. Firstly, you might be wondering what proximity range is, and you might also be wondering how proximity range becomes activated as a family member. Also, just a heads up, we're planning on making a full proximity guide in the future, so keep your eyes peeled for that coming soon. When we're talking about the proximity warning today, we'll just be looking at it from the family perspective, and like I mentioned, we'll be covering the victim side in another video. The proximity warning is a visual cue for family members that lets them know that they are near the final victim in a match. You'll know the proximity warning is active when you get this yellow or orange circular glow around your screen. From all the testing I conducted in public matches, I was able to determine that the proximity warning for family members will only activate under a few conditions. Number 1, as I previously mentioned, there can only be 1 victim left standing in the match. If there's more than 1 victim remaining, you won't get a proximity warning. Number 2, Grandpa must actively be performing a howl in order to gain this buff. If Grandpa isn't howling, then no proximity warnings will activate. Additionally, you must be close to the last victim at the time of Grandpa's howl. If you're too far away, the proximity warning simply won't kick in. Lastly, Grandpa must be at level 5 in order to make the proximity warning appear. I tested this at some of Grandpa's earlier levels with the last victim standing, and I wasn't able to get any sort of proximity warning to show up. Of course, if you have any other information on this, feel free to leave it down below, as I was only gathering data from public matches. Essentially, the function of the proximity warning is to let you know that you are close to the final victim during Grandpa's howl. It's a pretty minimal effect in terms of gameplay impact overall. So now that we understand what the family proximity warning is and how to activate it as a family member, let's talk about this perk. Essentially, I Smell Blood is going to be a buff for your proximity warning on the family side of things. The perk states that your proximity range is increased by 3 times, and all this means is that the radius in which you receive a proximity warning when Grandpa is howling is increased. On a simpler level, you receive the proximity warning when you are a bit further from the victim. This perk really isn't good whatsoever and doesn't have a lot to offer, but I'd be curious to see if anyone has found any uses or stronger applications for it. So what's the victim perk that counters this? This perk is called Dead Weight, and this perk causes the family proximity radius to be 60% smaller than it usually is when you are the last victim alive. This also isn't a very worthwhile perk to run, but it does counter I Smell Blood in case you're worried about that. All in all, I Smell Blood is a pretty weak perk, but I wanted to clear the air on what this perk is and how it functions. Once again, we'll be diving into more of the proximity mechanics in the future, and if you enjoyed what you saw today, consider dropping a like or subscribing. If you have any other questions or information as well, leave them down below. Thank you all so much. We'll see you in the next one.